Okay, we're going to give our users the ability to upload images via our client, of course, and to help us do that, we're going to use a file uploader component, a third-party one, and this one is called ng2 file upload. Or not on the website, they call it Angular file upload, but the package that we're going to use is called ng2 file upload. And if we go to the npm documentation for this, then why is it called ng2 file upload, as that sounds really old? Like Angular 2 was released in 2016, and you don't see many packages that have the ng2 prefix anymore. And just a bit of Angular history for you. Angular version 1 was released in 2010, and any packages that people made for the original version of Angular were always prefixed ng, so there might have been an ng file upload. So when Angular 2 came along 6 years later in 2016, then packages for Angular 2 were typically prefixed with ng2. But then Angular went on a major release frenzy, and Angular 2 in September 2016 became Angular 4 by March of 2017. There was 2 major versions within 6 months. And ever since then, there's been a major release every 6 months after that. So soon after this, instead of prefixing packages with ng2, they would typically be called ngx. And Angular 1, as it became to be known, was renamed to AngularJS, and it's nothing really to do with what we use today as Angular. And it's just a completely different thing. Angular 2 was not a sequel to Angular 1 or an update to Angular 1. It was a complete start again from scratch, component-based JavaScript library that we use today, or a JavaScript framework, I should say, whereas AngularJS was more of a scripting tool that we could add elements to in our HTML. And I remember a long time ago using AngularJS for a project, and the code was horrible. But what we have now is Angular 17, and we're going to use something that appears it was or is for Angular 2, which was released many moons ago. But this is kind of kept up to date, and it's still very popular with 96,000 weekly downloads. And it's currently on version 5, and the last time it was published was 10 months ago. And if we go and take a look at their GitHub repository, then it's a bit quirky because, sure, the last release was 10 months ago, but somebody did make the effort to update it to Angular 17, but they never actually released it. So we're still on version 5, the released version. And if we take a look at the Issues tab, then inside here we've got an Angular version 17 support, and if we take a look at this, then we'll find as we scroll down that we're still waiting for somebody to hit the release button on the package. So the version that we're going to use will install with Angular 16 no problem, but in order to get it to work on Angular 17, then we're going to use some package.json override trickery to get around this, and I'll come back to that soon, as it'll give us a way to install this without encountering errors. But do use this kind of trickery with care, because if we take a look at the repository, and I'll go back to the repository, and if I take a look at the Angular 6 or Angular 17 updates and see what this one actually is, then we can take a look at the files changed and have a glance and see if there's anything that's likely to give us problems. And really, the only thing that has changed of any significance is the peer dependencies, and this is what typically causes us problems when we try and install it. What I'm trying to say is, when I demonstrate this trickery, please use with care, and please do the research to make sure that what they've changed isn't reliant on a breaking change between the different major versions of Angular. That's the only way you'll run into issues with this kind of thing. So with all of that, let's go ahead and actually make use of it. So I'll go back to the documentation here, and we just need to use npm i ng2 file upload. So I'm just going to copy that into my clipboard, head back to VS Code. I'm going to demonstrate the error that you're going to see when we try and install this, and then we'll use the trickery to get around our package.json. And I'll run that command, press return. But then what we get here is the problem with the dependencies. And this error, if we take a look at this, it says it's found in our package.json Angular Common 17.3.9, but what it wants to find is Angular 16. And if they had released the next version of ng2 file upload, then we wouldn't have this kind of error. So we get around this error, and I'm just going to go back to the GitHub repository once again, and I'm just going to go back to the Issues tab, and where the Angular version 17 support is, then I'm just going to use this particular piece of code where we override the ng2 file upload, and we set effectively its dependencies for Angular Common and Angular Core, and we specify them to what our Angular dependencies are in our project. And we'll use this trick so that we get a clean console. But like I say, please use this with care and understand the consequences, and do the research in the GitHub repo as well that you're getting the package from to make sure it's not going to cause you any problems. And of course, test what you're using thoroughly in your application. Make sure it's working as expected for what you need to use it for. Now, I have tested this, so I know it's fine. So I'm going to head to the package.json. And inside here, just below the dev dependencies, I'm just going to add a comma and then paste in that override code inside here. So we override the ng2 file upload, and we're setting the dependencies for Angular Common and Angular Core to what our dependencies are in this package.json. So it's going to effectively override those dependencies in the third-party package we're using, and it's going to use our ones. So it's going to say, okay, I need Angular 17, or I need Angular Core 17 as well. What this means is that I can clear this window with all that nasty error, and I can rerun that command, and it's going to install cleanly. And now we can carry on.